he would. He broke his promise of lowering taxes on small businesses from 11 to 9%. He broke his promise to create tax changes without affecting income. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to express myself on this subject.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Winter is coming. Yet we, the North, the true North, strong and free, are not afraid of winter. We embrace it and keep warm with glowing hearts and world-class brands like Canada Goose. This business, one of whose flagships is located in my riding of Eglinton Lawrence, started nearly 60 years ago. Since then, Canada Goose has become a significant innovator, jobs creator, and one of the most recognized winter apparel clothing companies around the world. La semaine dernière,
last week, in recognition of the excellent work of this local business, the Prime Minister came and spoke with staff about their work, and
I would like to recognize that for the past 60 years, Canada Goose has been a trailblazer on how to develop a made-in-Canada brand, which is a success the world over, one that we can all be proud of. Winter is coming, but we'll all be warm. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bellechasse. Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of excellent Conservative government, we have a huge problem in Lévis-Bellechasse. For months, I've been flooded with questions from municipalities, Montmagny, Côte-de-Basque, and even the Gaspé. And why? Because of traffic congestion. And what's the solution? A third link between Lévis and Quebec City. With the Liberal promises to spend billions on infrastructure, it's now time to spend on a third link between eastern Lévis and Quebec City. This would be in keeping with the economic status of our cities. As an engineer, I call on the federal government, on the Liberal government, to finally show some leadership, work with the Quebec government to create vital infrastructure development for eastern Quebec. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Député.
The honourable member for Louis-Hébert. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this, the last day of Women's History Month, I'd like to speak of a great woman who inspired me. She was with me for my first political battle to prevent the closure of a ski hill where I used to snowboard. She also was with me for my second political battle of my life against amalgamation. And thanks to her, there's still a beautiful beach, the Jacques-Cartier Beach. She also didn't want anyone to grow up with the stigma of living in social housing. She believed in investing in people instead of bricks and mortar. And I'm talking about former Mayor André Boucher, who was a great lady and a pioneer who asserted herself in a man's world. She was frank, she was hardworking, she had a big heart, she worked for Sainte-Foy. I'd like to thank Madam Mayor. She has inspired me since my youth and still does today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, as you can see, I'm proudly sporting the official bow tie of the Wear a Mustache for Your Local Hospital campaign. For the past 4 years, this campaign has raised awareness and funds to equip urologists at my local hospital with the best cutting-edge tools for diagnosing and treating men's cancers. I'd like to thank David Nollet, who has testicular cancer, for agreeing to be the campaign spokesman. Our local Louis Cyr isn't just a strong man, he's also got a lot of heart. Whether you participate by creating a Facebook profile and upping the ante with your best mustache pics, or by ordering promotional items, the goal is the same. Keep those donations rolling in till the pot overflows. For those who can't or don't want to grow a mustache, and for the ladies who prefer their partner without this accoutrement, be creative and find your own way to support the cause. Give generously to the Mustache Campaign.
The honourable member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, between 1952 and 1992, the CBC produced in-house thousands of hours of Canadian content now archived. As a young immigrant, the CBC helped me understand my new country and its people. I remember with fondness a BC series, The Beachcombers, launched in 1972, telling a unique West Coast story of salvage loggers. For 19 years, Nick, Bruno Gerussi, entered my home and heart with his unsavory rival relic, Robert Clothier, and the hapless RCMP Constable Jackson Davies, who met each other at the local Café Molly's Reach. I never missed an episode. The series was syndicated globally and sparked a tourism bonanza for Gibsons, BC, that is still alive today, 44 years later. This is where my love affair with British Columbia began. On our 150th anniversary, let's replay those stories and reclaim our heritage.
The honourable member for Red Deer Mountain View.
Mr. Speaker, it's a stressful time for many Western Canadian farmers as they struggle to get this year's crop in the bin. Now, getting together with industry leaders in agricultural manufacturing, farm business analysts, as well as fellow producers at Red Deer's Agri-Trade Expo on November 9th to 12th would be an excellent time to either celebrate the harvest or discover new management strategies to address whatever new twists Mother Nature may bring. Agri-Trade is also an opportunity to help build and bridge the rural-urban divide by showcasing advocates who tell the story of Canadian farmers. A story that champions the safest, most ethically produced and managed food that is available on Earth. I'm also looking forward to speak at the Western Canadian Wheat Growers event on Thursday night to highlight new opportunities in agriculture and to celebrate wheat growers' commitment to Canada's new marketing freedom system. I'm inviting everyone to come join us for an innovative, informative, and exciting 2016 Agri-Trade Expo at Red Deer's Westerner Park. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Burnaby North Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to stand in the House today and share the exceptional work of Wanda Mulholland and the Burnaby Homelessness Task Force. This month, I was proud to host the task force at our constituency office with representatives from all three levels of government, including the member for New Westminster Burnaby. Now, our team is making important progress at every level in the housing continuum, Mr. Speaker, but homelessness is a reality still faced by far too many Canadians. While the National Housing Strategy is being developed, our government is investing in an additional $111 million for the Homelessness Partnering Strategy. This is the single largest investment in the program since 1999. From this, $12.5 million will fund innovative projects submitted by Canadians that aim to tackle homelessness. I look forward to continuing our work in the riding and creating better housing outcomes for families in Burnaby and in North Vancouver, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate the Ahmadiyya community in Canada for their 50th anniversary and to thank His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad for his visit to Ottawa. Through his advocacy and their motto, love for all and hatred for none, they are helping to spread the message of peace. The Ahmadiyya community is recognized worldwide for their outreach and humanitarian aid programs through their Humanity First organization, providing assistance to those less fortunate via thousands of volunteers across the globe. In my riding, they have helped to settle Syrian refugees, run a food bank and a homeless shelter, as well as raising over $1 million to support the new Vaughan Hospital. To the Ahmadiyya community, thank you for all you do and for spreading the message of peace in a troubled world, and congratulations on your 50th anniversary in Canada.
The honourable member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Green is the color and football is the game. It was a glorious send-off for Taylor Field on the weekend in Regina. Rider Nation said goodbye to their home as they prepare to move over to the new Mosaic Stadium. Taylor Field has played host to 611 professional CFL games, 3 Grey Cups, 1995, 2003, and the much-celebrated 2013 Classic where the Riders hosted Hamilton. Many call this the greatest game in Rough Rider history. Fans came this weekend from all over the world to witness the closing of this iconic site. A 30-minute tribute to the stadium had many in tears after the game. The final tribute, when Rider greats George Reed, Roger Aldag, Gene Makowski, and Darian Durant passed the Grey Cup to each other, signaling the team's 4 championships. Goodbye, Taylor Field, and thank you for all the memories.
The honourable member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Economies is just as important as transportation infrastructure is in urban Canada. It's absolutely essential if rural economies like my area of Nova Scotia are to survive and prosper. This year's successful Phase 1 of the infrastructure program focused on clean water and wastewater. In the next phase of funding programs, I urge the government to make rural broadband service a priority and use the same successful approach for broadband funding to ensure that rural communities are able to access this necessary mode of communication. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Shelley White for her incredibly hard work and dedication to improving lives in my riding and in many neighbouring communities. As President and CEO of the United Way of Peel Region over the past 13 years, Shelley has focused on the prevention and eradication of poverty by mobilizing local residents as well as the public, private and non-profit sectors. Shelley also believes that there's a clear link between mental illness and poverty. Through the United Way, she and her team have focused on eliminating the stigma of mental illness and investing in community-based mental health programs and services. As Women's History Month draws to a close, Mr. Speaker, Canadians have celebrated the profound impact that women and girls have had and will continue to have on our society. Because of Shelley White, Mr. Speaker, because of her, our communities in Peel Region have been greatly enriched and meaningful social progress has been achieved. Thank you, Shelley, for your vision, your leadership, and your inspiration.
The honourable member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, today the Liberals have missed their self-imposed deadline to fix the Phoenix pay system. Sadly, my riding of Prince Albert is one of the many that have been affected by this Liberal incompetency. Last week, unpaid workers employed in the Prince Albert Penitentiary protested in front of my office. Their message was loud and clear, Mr. Speaker. They want the Minister of Public Works to take this issue seriously and to take action. My office has reached out to corrections workers who have contacted me on this issue. I have personally met with Union Representative Boyd Ward to discuss the plight of many families who are suffering as a result of this Liberal mess. Take, for instance, the plight of one corrections worker who is owed thousands of dollars in back pay while on maternity leave, or plight of another who has yet to be compensated for the months of May, June, July, and August and September. Every single federal government worker deserves to be paid money they are owed. On behalf of the correction workers in Prince Albert and federal workers across this country, I demand that this Liberal government stop setting meaningless deadlines. Instead, pay them what they're owed.
The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend, Hindus, Sikhs, Jains and Buddhists in my riding of Scarborough Centre and across Canada celebrated Diwali, the festival of lights and Bandi Chor Divas. I had the pleasure of taking part in several Diwali celebrations this weekend in Scarborough. Diwali is a time of happiness and joy, of togetherness, community and family. It's a time of pageantry and entertainment and of course of great foods. Although, Mr. Speaker, the sweets really are too tempting. More than anything, Diwali is the time of community and of coming together. Our diversity is our strength, and the Hindu, Sikh, Jain, and Buddhist communities are part of the diversity that makes Canada strong. To all those celebrating, I wish a very happy Diwali and Bandi Chor Divas.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, Halloween is the perfect time of year to talk about the Windsor-Detroit border because under the current government, it keeps getting scarier and scarier. After stirring up old Liberal ghosts to lead Canada's most important infrastructure priority, the project seems to have slipped into the twilight zone. Whether it's spooky backroom conversations with the ghouls at the Ambassador Bridge or a zombie-like approach to property acquisition, the government appears to be lost in a haunted corn maze rather than on track to build a new crossing. When you patch together the missing deadlines, terrifying confusion around tactics, or a creepy coziness with the company working to suck the lifeblood right out of Windsor, the government appears to be building their very own Frankenstein and just waiting for a lightning storm to flip a switch. The Liberal approach to this project is becoming a house of horrors for our bilateral trade capacity and businesses that rely on surface trade between Canada and the United States, and the businesses are scared stiff, Mr. Speaker. Let's resurrect accountability for a happy Halloween.
Honourable member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, on the night of All Hallows Eve, Canadians have a reason to be afraid. The Liberals promised treats but have only provided tricks to date. The Liberal Legion of Doom seems intent on stealing our tax dollars. This is enough to make anyone run or holler. Instead of handing out candy or treats, they're giving out creepy carbon taxes, which will only lead to jobs facing axes. Whether you're dressed up as a fisherman from New Brunswick or Newfoundland, or a logger in BC, you can all expect to have less in hand. You see, this terrifying tax is nothing more than a Liberal trick. The only Canadians getting treats are the preferred, the top picked. They're dressed up as Liberal lobbyists attending pay-to-play fundraisers, doctors, lawyers, or Liberal Party chasers. While dressed up as a treat, it's plain to see. The Liberal plan is frightening trick on you and me. It's raising the deficit to scary new levels. So now you know it's not those dressed up as ghouls, ghosts, or Tasmanian devils. That Canadians have a reason to hide this day is because the Liberal Legion of Doom seems intent to haunt our jobs and growth away.
Member for Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My father, Ronald Lloyd May, loved Halloween. Dressing up in beat-up old mechanic overalls and my mom's 70s fur hat, he'd entertain the trick-or-treaters. He was amazing at recognizing when the younger goblins and ghosts were apprehensive, and he would encourage their bravery and praise the quality of their costumes. And I'd watch with glee when he would scare the teenagers who may be a little too old to be going door to door. When I was 12 years old, my father passed away from a very rare form of bone marrow cancer, and I took up the responsibility of manning the door on Halloween. Today is the first time in 30 years I won't be handing out candy for the kids at my home in Cambridge. This day always reminds me of my dad, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to stand up and praise a man who taught me respect, honesty, caring, and responsibility. From Ron May and myself, happy Halloween, everyone.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister set in place ethics rules for his own ministers to follow in his document called Open and Accountable Government that forbid the kind of cash for access fundraisers that they're involved in. In fact, the Prime Minister is also involved, and he's violating his own ethics rules. Mr. Speaker, what kind of an example is the Prime Minister setting when he can't even follow his own rules?
Prime Minister.
For over a year now, Mr. Speaker, the members opposite have been criticizing this government regularly for engaging with Canadians too much, for being too open and accessible, for consulting regularly with Canadians and demonstrating, quite frankly, the most open and accessible government this country has ever seen. We, of course, follow all the rules and make sure that where we engage with Canadians, we are listening to them in the most positive and respectful way possible.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is the Prime Minister brought in new rules that he claimed would raise the ethical standard. But he's not doing that. In fact, he's violating these very ethical rules that he brought in. And these are not open to the general public. These are exclusive fundraisers for people who can afford it and who happen to be invited. So I ask him again, Mr. Speaker, how can we expect other people to follow the rules when the Prime Minister won't even follow his own?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite Wells knows, I spend a tremendous amount of time working hard for Canadians right across the country, meeting with them, meeting with crowds, meeting with individuals, listening to consumer groups, listening to small businesses, engaging with Canadians right across the country, and I will continue to, as will our ministry, the members of our cabinet. The Finance Minister has embarked on unprecedented levels of public consultations to make sure that we are responding to the very real challenges that Canadians are facing. This is why we did things like raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% and lower them for the middle class. These are things Canadians wanted.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, unprecedented is one word that I could use for these very exclusive fundraisers. These invitations are completely hidden from the general public. They all feature a cabinet minister as the star attraction. But worst, they are being hosted and attended by insiders and lobbyists who want something from the government. The Prime Minister can put an end to this problem today if he wants to. All he has to do is enforce his own rules. No cash for access fundraisers, no preferential access to government. Why doesn't he just stop doing this?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
The fact is, Mr. Speaker, there is no preferential access to this government. This government is demonstrating the most open and transparent approach, not just to following the rules, but being more engaged with Canadians than any previous government. Canadians or people with concerns want to meet this government. We are consulting, we are engaging, we are, quite frankly, constantly receiving criticism from the other side of the aisle that we are spending too much time listening to Canadians. Well, the fact of the matter is, the listening to Canadians is what is allowing us to deliver for Canadians, as we have been doing for the past year, as we will continue to do.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
About that, because everyday life for families is getting more expensive under this Prime Minister. His expensive carbon tax will raise the cost of home heating, gasoline, and groceries. He's making decisions every day that will cost households thousands of dollars extra every year. He's even taking away tax breaks for kids' hockey, music lessons, and arts classes. And tomorrow's economic update is going to unveil even more expensive promises that Canadians can't afford. Mr. Speaker, who does the Prime Minister think is going to pay for this next spending spree?
Honourable Prime Minister.
The fact is, Mr. Speaker, over the past year, we raised taxes on the wealthiest 1% and lowered them for the middle class. And the members opposite voted against raising taxes on the wealthiest 1% and lowering them for the middle class. We've been working hard to support the middle class, to invest in their future, to demonstrate that this government understands the concerns that Canadians are living and is actually responding to them. That's what Canadians expect. That's what we're going to continue to do. That's why I'm looking forward to the fall economic update tomorrow.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Here is the reality. The economy hasn't created a single net new full-time job since the Prime Minister was elected. In fact, the economy is on track to create approximately 100,000 fewer jobs this year than last year. The Prime Minister's plan has clearly failed. So tomorrow, is he going to table a new plan that will actually create jobs, or can we expect the same old, billions of dollars in spending and higher taxes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I look forward to tomorrow's announcement that is going to put more money in the pockets of the middle class and put us on a positive growth trajectory. But I think it'd be important to take a moment right now to recognize a significant landmark that was passed yesterday, that we reached yesterday. For 7 years, there was an awful lot of work done on a free trade deal with Europe, and I need to credit the members opposite, including the member from Abbotsford, for doing a lot of work on that over the years. And I'm very pleased to be able to also credit the Minister of International Trade, who did an extraordinary job on getting the deal signed. We can all be proud that we now have an extraordinary positive deal with Europe.
Honourable Member for Abbotsford, James Nuvikeyu. Mr. Speaker, after having this year in legal battles and 4 days attacking the expertise of Cindy Blackstock, we are pleased to learn this morning that the government is finally going to support our motion to end discrimination against First Nations children. We learned that through Twitter. So we're used to their rhetoric, but can the Prime Minister tell us what his deadline is to implement the will of this Parliament? Right Honourable Prime Minister. As I have said on several occasions, there are fewer commitments that are as important as this government, as to repair the nation-to-nation relationship between us and the Indigenous peoples and to ensure a strong future for the young people of those communities. That is why we invested $8.4 billion over 5 years in our first budget, and we continue to work with these communities to invest in the health and safety of our young people. That is a priority for us, and we will continue to work with everyone in this House on that file. The Honourable Member for Abbotsford James Nunavikeyu. I didn't hear an answer in that, Mr. Speaker. without a deadline. It's just words. In 2007, the Liberals also voted for our motion on the Jordan Principle, but once in power, and even after 2 court orders, children are still waiting. Children who can no longer wait. Children should not have to wait anymore. So I repeat, what is the government's deadline to put an end to the discrimination against Indigenous children? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As I have often said, the problems that we are facing have been going on for years, decades, and even generations, and that is why we need to act now. But we need to offer solutions now and build a system that will be able to address these issues over the long term as well. That is why we are working immediately with these historic investments, but we will also continue to build capacity and work in partnership with Indigenous peoples to improve this issue.
Speaker, we thank Justice Murray Sinclair for reminding parliamentarians of our duty to put the children first and vote to order this government to be in compliance with the Human Rights Tribunal. And until forced to vote, the government refused mediation from the tribunal, ignored 2 compliance orders, and the Liberal caucus were insinuating in the House that the shortfall numbers put forward by Cindy Blackstock to the tribunal were pulled out of thin air or like throwing confetti around. So to the Prime Minister, will he commit to the immediate implementation of the $155 million shortfall in child welfare that was identified this year?
Honourable Prime Minister.
One of the challenges this House has always faced, this government has always faced, is the fact that dictating the solutions from the government side upon Indigenous peoples hasn't worked. Indeed, that has continued to fail. That's why we are so committed to working with Indigenous peoples, working with provinces and territories, municipalities and partners to ensure that we're building a strong and resilient future for young people right across the country. That's what we're committed to. That's why we made historic investments in $8.4 billion in Budget 2016, and that's why we recognize there is much more to do, and we're going to continue working on that.
Member for Timmins, James.
With all due respect, reconciliation isn't a hashtag. We're talking about a court order, so I'll take that as a no. This motion tomorrow specifically instructs the government to end the court cases against children who've been denied medical treatment. So let's look at his government that's decided to spend 4 times more on lawyers to fight a child denied special orthodontic surgery that would keep her teeth from falling out than the actual cost of the treatment. So to the Prime Minister, will he at least assure this House he'll respect tomorrow's vote, he'll end this court fight against this child, cover the medical costs, and end this systemic denial of medical services to Indigenous children? Yes or no?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since we took office, this government has demonstrated that no relationship is more important to us than fixing the broken relationship with Indigenous peoples and making real investments in partnership with Indigenous communities to be able to end the systemic neglect and pain that young people across the country and Indigenous communities are going through. This is something we are committed to fixing. It is something we are working very, very hard in partnership with Indigenous Canadians, and we will continue to.
Honourable Member for Louis St. Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the Minister of Finance was in Toronto, and he said the following: "We will continue to be fiscally responsible." Fiscally responsible. Mr. Speaker, is it fiscally responsible to run a deficit of $30 billion, 3 times higher than forecast? Is it fiscally responsible to make announcements concerning the Canada Child Benefit, but to forget to index it? Is it fiscally responsible to impose the Liberal carbon tax? Mr. Speaker, is it fiscally responsible to be so stupid? Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we know that the most important thing for Canadian families and for the middle class is to make investments in the future. We know that with these investments, we can improve our lot for the future, for our children, for our grandchildren. At the same time, yes, it is true, it is important to be responsible with taxpayers' money, and that is exactly what we are doing. We are investing responsibly, and in this way, we will have a better future than now. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Louis St. Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister for the quality of his French. However, tomorrow is the fall fiscal update. Could he update us on his electoral commitments, and especially including SMEs? It is the Liberal Party that pledged during the last election campaign to lower the tax rate to 9%, and it has not yet done so. However, it has imposed the Liberal carbon tax and an additional rate for the pension fund. Mr. Speaker, what is the Liberals' plan? What is the government's plan to help small and medium enterprises that create jobs and wealth? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow I will have the opportunity in this House to announce our economic plan for the future, to announce the situation of our economy. We will have a long-term plan to improve the situation of our economy that will help small and medium-sized businesses, that will help families, that will help the middle class. That is our goal, Mr. Speaker. We have a plan for the long term, and it will be better for our country for the future.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister is telling our young workers that they have to accept a lifetime of contract work and job churn. And the Liberals' plan is making things even worse. They're making it difficult for businesses to hire, and they're piling up the debt that this younger generation will have to pay back on their behalf. The participation of young workers has dropped because they can't find jobs. Mr. Speaker, my question is, when will the Liberals stop taxing our job creators into the ground and actually provide economic stability and hope for the rising generation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we believe that it's critically important that we create success for this generation and for the next generation of Canadians. We know that helping students to do well, get money so they can get through secondary and university education is critically important. That's what we've done. We know that thinking about training and retraining is critically important. We know that we need to consider the challenging economy that young people face and do better for their future through the kind of investments that will make a real difference.
Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, on October 20th, I asked the Finance Minister why he is making it harder for young families to buy homes through new mortgage rules. The Parliamentary Secretary agreed that buying a house is the most important investment most Canadian families will make. But a few minutes later, when confronted on the Liberals' out-of-control spending and borrowing, the same member said, when interest rates are low, that's the time to invest. Well, the Finance Minister can't have it both ways. Why does this minister use low interest rates to justify huge deficits while denying families the opportunity to buy homes?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to talk about the housing market in Canada. We have taken important measures to keep the housing market stable for the long term. We know that for Canadians that have a house, or for young Canadians that want to buy a house, they care about having a home that can maintain its value over time. They care about a stable and secure housing market. That's what we're working to make sure exists for young people today and for families that own a home. That's our responsibility, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Liberals said that a massive deficit would create jobs. But here's what the Parliamentary Budget Officer's employment assessment said after a year of Liberal borrowing. 0 new full-time jobs. Job growth is at half the rate as under the previous government, and all of them are part-time. And despite the low dollar, there are 20,000 fewer manufacturing jobs than a year ago. Will the Finance Minister use tomorrow's update to cancel planned tax increases that his department has warned will kill yet more jobs?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to answer this question because we were left with the lowest growth era after the last decade. We came into office promising Canadians that we would make a real and measurable difference for their families, that we would improve the outcomes for middle-class Canadians. We set right about doing that work, Mr. Speaker, by lowering taxes on the middle class, by increasing the Canada Child Benefit so that we can help Canadians. We're going to start seeing that impact, Mr. Speaker, and what we're going to do tomorrow is talk about our long-term plans to make a real difference for middle-class Canadians for the future of themselves and their families.
Member for Central Okanagan's Milkameen Nicollet.
The Parliamentary Budget Office said that just wasn't true. Mr. Speaker, he needs to get off those talking points. Atlantic Canada has had a lot to bear, a lot of real change of late. For the first time ever, they have an HoC minister from outside Atlantic Canada. The Prime Minister attempted to deny Atlantic Canada representation on our Supreme Court. Now Atlantic Canada is being denied any representation on the Liberals' advisory panel on economic growth. So far, it seems the only way that Atlantic Canadians can have any input is by paying $1,500 a plate to attend a Liberal fundraiser. When will one of the 32 Atlantic members on that side of the House stand up for their region?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, we've had 10 years in the previous government that pitted one region against the other and pitting Canadians against each other. We have a different approach, and I work with all MPs from Atlantic Canada, regardless of their political affiliation, because I believe it's time for change. And it's time to work with four outstanding ministers who, along with the 4 premiers and along with the 28 MPs, have put forward an Atlantic growth strategy, a strategy that's investing in the economy, creating jobs, Mr. Speaker, and it's good for Atlantic Canada, it's good for all Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, this morning we learned that once again a journalist from La Presse has been spied on by police, and the federal government is piling on as well. A journalist from Vice is risking prison because he refuses to disclose his sources to the RCMP. And with the measures from C-51 that are still in place, journalists and freedom advocacy groups are worried that the situation will get worse. Does the government recognize how important it is to tell the RCMP to respect the freedom of the press?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, freedom of the press is a fundamental principle that is, in fact, enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The utmost care must be taken by law enforcement when criminal investigations and journalism intersect. At the federal level, the RCMP is governed by an explicit ministerial directive on sensitive sector investigations, which outlines the special care that is demanded for investigations that impact on fundamental institutions of Canadian society, including the media, academia, religion, and unions. We take the freedom of the press in this country very, very seriously.
Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. If they support the freedom of the press, they should act accordingly, Mr. Speaker. Just 1 year in power, and we're also back to the very height of Liberal arrogance. The Minister of Finance holds a fundraising evening, $1,500 per ticket for a select few. Access guaranteed or your money back. The lobbying commissioner finds this suspicious, wants to look at it, but the Liberal Party says, Ms. Commissioner, none of your business. You can't investigate our ministers. Well, I have news for the Liberals. It is our business, and it's her business. Will the Prime Minister tell his troops to fall in line? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we have some of the strictest fundraising rules in the country. Some provinces have no limits, and some provinces receive donations from corporations or business organizations. The federal system does not allow for such donations to be accepted. There cannot be any conflict of interest when we abide by the rules, and that is what we will continue to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in another brazen example of cash for access, on August 29th, the Minister of Natural Resources attended a high-priced fundraiser at the offices of McPherson, Leslie, and Tyerman. MLT is one of the largest law firms in Canada. They specialize in the natural resources sector, the same sector that this minister regulates. This is a clear conflict of interest. When will this government stop these unethical fundraisers and put an end to their cash for access schemes?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as the member very well knows, the federal rules are some of the strongest in the country. In fact, in some provinces, individuals can donate in the tens of thousands of dollars, and in other jurisdictions, they have no limits. Some provinces accept donations from unions, trade associations, and corporations. That is not the case in the federal system. The federal rules are some of the strictest in the country for all members and are open and transparent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
But, Mr. Speaker, it gets worse. Less than a month after this fundraiser, MLT merged with Aikens, Macaulay and Thorvaldson. This firm has lobbied the minister's department on several occasions. So once again, we have Liberal insiders hosting ministers at exclusive high-end fundraisers, and then turning around and lobbying them. The minister should have never attended this Cash for Access fundraiser. Why did the minister completely ignore the Prime Minister's rules and put himself in this blatant conflict of interest?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, federal politics is subject to some of the strictest political financing legislation and regulations in all of the country. When the rules are followed, no conflicts of interest can exist, and we will continue to follow the rules. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, I don't think we've seen the end of the skeletons in the Liberal closets, or rather, should I say, in their bank coffers. We know that some ministers offer privileged access, and now we learn that a law firm with a specific interest in natural resources hosted the Minister of Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, who got preferential access at the fundraising activity of MLT, and why does the government not realize that this is another conflict of interest? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as I said, the federal rules are among the strictest in the country because in some provinces, personal donations can be up to $10,000 and others have no limit. Certain provinces also accept donations from unions, corporations, and trade organizations. The federal system does not allow for the accepting of such donations. There can be no conflict of interest when we abide by the rules, and that is what we will continue to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Red Deer Lacombe.
So, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister clearly doesn't get it when it comes to Cash for Access fundraisers. Former Liberal Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Kopp said these private elite events are an opportunity for people doing business with the government to make a pitch to a senior cabinet minister. She said, you go get an envelope, and you fill it up, and you say, I need this, or I need that, or I need this. Now, we should thank Sheila Kopp for reminding us that the Liberal Party and cash-stuffed envelopes go hand in hand. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister follow his own rules and stop these Cash for Access events?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
For the member that the federal rules are some of the strongest in the country. In fact, in some provinces, individuals can donate in the tens of thousands of dollars, and in other jurisdictions, there is no limits. The federal rules are some of the strictest in the country, and all members are abiding by the same rules. Those rules are open and transparent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order. I get the feeling people have been into the Halloween chocolates already. The open member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Halloween was supposed to mark the end of the nightmares caused by the Phoenix pay system, but the horror story lives on. Today, more than 30,000 cases of no pay or inaccurate pay are still unresolved. Hundreds of public employees spent their lunch protesting in front of the Prime Minister's office, demanding to be paid. Why did the government miss its own deadline, and can they tell us when exactly all the Phoenix cases will be dealt with once and for all?
Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I have said repeatedly, for anyone to go without pay for work performed is completely unacceptable, especially when there are hardships involved. We are working very hard to make sure that all of the outstanding issues are resolved. We have resolved 75% of the outstanding cases. We are going to put a dedicated team to look at the complex issues that remain. And those that remain are much more complex, some going back 3 years, Mr. Speaker, in terms of the length of time that these employees have been without pay for services performed. It is totally unacceptable. And we are throwing...
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, while the government is taking a hard line with Public Service Alliance of Canada employees, the government isn't even able to respect its own deadlines for fixing the Phoenix system. Public service employees deserve better than not being paid for 3 years because employees of this government hasn't even paid them. So when will the government show a bit of respect to its employees? And can the minister responsible for this debacle finally tell us exactly when the problems with Phoenix will be solved?
For Public Services and Procurement.
Mr.
Speaker, my colleague is absolutely right. It's totally unacceptable for employees to go without pay for work performed. I have said that repeatedly. We are putting extra measures in place. We have done so. We've hired an additional 250 employees to deal with these cases. We are throwing everything we have at this because, again, we want to make sure that now the most complex cases get resolved, because we have resolved three-quarters of those that were outstanding.
Honourable Member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, the signature of CETA between Canada and the European Union is a historic movement. CETA will provide Canada with access to EU's more than 500 million consumers. Canadians stand to benefit significantly from increased access to this 28-country market, which generates $20 trillion in annual economic activity. Can the Minister update this House on how she intends to move forward with this ambitious and progressive agreement?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Surrey Newton for this important question. After question period, I will have the honour of tabling the signed agreement in this House and will introduce the bill to implement CETA. Historic moment for Canada, and I hope all members will put aside partisanship and support this progressive trade agreement that will create jobs and growth for the middle class. With CETA, Canada is setting the international standard for 21st century trade agreements.
The member for Bow River. The member for Bow River.
Mr. Speaker,
Order, you'd think it was Valentine's or something, wouldn't you? But let's now all calm down and listen to the honourable member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ranchers in southern Alberta are reeling from a recent outbreak of bovine tuberculosis, and there's no resolution in sight. CFIA has been on the ground investigating, but there's no clear answer on how long it will be before the quarantines are lifted. In difficult economic time, ranchers need to know when they can get their cattle to market. They get one payday a year. What will the Minister of Health do to ensure that there are enough inspectors on the ground to get answers as soon as possible to limit the economic losses for these farm families?
The Honourable
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to protect the health of Canadians and of animals. To respect this commitment, we've opened an investigation into this file. We've restricted movements of any animals that could be affected. In all cases, where there is an obligation of reporting diseases, the idea is to minimize the impact on producers while respecting our international obligations. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, but more than 30 ranch families in southern Alberta are facing devastating news. They can't sell their cattle. This could not have happened at a worst possible time. They have fall contracts, but this quarantine is preventing them from selling their calves. Ranch families in southern Alberta are facing more than $5 million in losses. But this will reverberate throughout the industry. Processing plants, feedlots, trucking companies in southern Alberta will all feel the impact. Mr. Speaker, time is of the essence on this issue. What action is this minister taking to help the cattle ranchers in southern Alberta?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I thank the colleague for his question. As I said earlier, we've restricted the movement of any animals that might be affected. In all cases where diseases are declared, the idea is to minimize impacts for producers while respecting domestic and international obligations. We are taking appropriate steps in order to protect the health of Canadians, to protect the health of cattle, and to protect access to our international markets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, last week the minister said there is a, quote, strong business case for closing the Vegreville Case Processing Centre. But no one was consulted, not local staff or administrators, not town leaders or residents. When asked directly if a full cost analysis was done, senior department officials said no. So obviously the minister can't claim a business case without even a cost analysis. What can possibly be the minister's excuse for devastating the people in Vegreville?
The Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the lease was coming up on the building. There was a great deal of work to be done, and the department made a very strong business case for moving the operation to Edmonton. I can mention the union was on side with this, and all employees will retain jobs in Edmonton should they wish. This government has a responsibility to spend taxpayers' money wisely, and I can assure members of this House who will agree that it is our duty to make immigration more efficient and to reduce the processing times, and that's what this does.
Order. Member for Lakeland. Order.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals should stop saying they're not causing job losses, because this edict is deliberately killing jobs in Vegreville. I hope the minister will join me in town, speak directly with the people who will be hurt the most, look them in their eyes and tell them why he approves this action. The minister should save these rural Alberta jobs. Will he stop this political removal of jobs from Vegreville to a Liberal-held city riding?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, from the point of view of the business case, there was a strong case for moving to Edmonton. Large numbers of people were retiring. The department was having trouble hiring people. And in fact, it is projected that this move will increase the total jobs in Alberta, not reduce the number of jobs, and we will have a more efficient immigration system which will reduce processing times and serve Canadians better.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques. Last week, we learned that the government asked the investment firm Credit Suisse to advise them about the advantages of privatizing Canadian airports. But Credit Suisse already invests in infrastructure like airports, so that gives you a little idea of what they're going to recommend. Not only are the Liberals letting the fox into the henhouse, they're throwing the doors open to let him in. The Liberals never talked about privatizing infrastructure during the election campaign, not once. Do they think they have a mandate to privatize Canadian infrastructure in this way? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, we don't have a mandate. We didn't give ourselves the mandate to do this, as you know. When a report was submitted about Canadian transportation, one of the 60 recommendations concerned the subject that was just raised. Of course, we are studying the question at the time, but no decision has been made. And if a decision is made, it will be done in the interest of travelers, in the interest of our airports, and in the interest of our air companies. Thank you.
Powell River.
The fact is, Mr. Speaker, they have no mandate to privatize from Canadians. None. However, the Prime Minister's so-called Advisory Council on Economic Issues recommends a Canadian infrastructure bank that will privatize the revenues of infrastructure. But how can you get revenue from highways, bridges and waterworks? Well, from tolls and user fees, of course. Liberals promised small deficits to invest in infrastructure. How can they justify bringing along massive deficits while privatizing infrastructure?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, we committed to investing more than $120 billion into infrastructure, supporting municipalities, supporting provinces. We are engaging with both the municipalities, provinces, as well as territory, and we will continue to engage with the private sector to build more infrastructure on behalf of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, our small businesses are hurting. CFIB's October report shows that 61% of small businesses state that higher taxes and regulations are the most significant barriers to allowing innovation and growth in their businesses. And yet, the Liberals continue to raise taxes through both the CPP and their new carbon tax. When will the Liberals stop punishing small businesses with higher taxes and more regulation?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for raising innovation, because that's such a key component of government's economic agenda. Innovation is so critical for small businesses, and that is why we're focusing on small businesses to make sure we invest in people and give them the skills and training they need to compete in a digital world. We're also focusing on emerging technologies and platforms that will allow them to be part of global supply chains. And we're focusing on these small businesses to grow, to be more export-oriented, Mr. Speaker. This is our economic plan of how we grow the economy and create jobs, Mr. Speaker.
Member for York Simcoe.
The Liberal hidden agenda of higher taxes continues to unfold. In the last election, the Liberals did not tell families about new higher taxes on children's hockey games, piano lessons, small businesses, and student textbooks. But then families were hit with exactly these tax hikes. Now the Heritage Minister has told us she's looking at all scenarios for a new tax on the internet. Why does this minister want to tax hard-working, cash-strapped Canadian families just to give that money to her well-heeled friends in what she calls the entertainment ecosystem?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to set the record straight on taxes. We lowered taxes on 9 million Canadians. So, for the 9 million Canadians with lower taxes, the average individual has $330 less taxes this year. The average family has $540 less taxes this year. Mr. Speaker, we lowered taxes on 9 million Canadians. This is something we're doing in order to help middle-class Canadians do well.
Member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, we thought the Liberals disliked tax credits after they cancelled the textbook tax credit for students, cancelled the arts tax credit for families with kids in dance, cancelled the sports tax credit for families with kids in sports. But we recently learned that the Minister of Heritage is creating a new tax credit for friends hosting talk shows. So, apparently Liberals only dislike tax credits when they help hardworking families, but they like it when it helps their Liberal elites. Can the Minister tell this House how much this retroactive tax credit on talk shows, will cost hardworking Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Our Canadian content creators, Mr. Speaker, our Canadian content creation sector is strong, and our Canadian artists and productions have succeeded on the world stage, and we are committed to supporting them. And we're in the midst of public consultations right now to make sure that we hear all the voices of Canadians when it comes to how to support Canadian content and how we make sure that we can export it. And of course, we're listening to a variety of ideas, but our main objective is to ensure that we have the strongest content industry in the world, and we are working on this.
Order, folks. Minimal amount of respect requires that we listen when the other side is speaking, the other person is speaking, we listen to each other, we take our turn, we listen to their turn, we get our turn again, etc. That's how it works here. So let's try to settle down and listen to the honourable member for Miramichi-Grand Lake.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, trade is essential when it comes to creating new markets for our Canadian agricultural products. It also creates good opportunities and ensures economic growth for our producers and their families. Our government understands the importance of creating new markets for our agricultural products and the importance of protecting our local interests. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture tell us about the benefits CETA will bring to our agriculture sector? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I thank my Honourable colleague for Miramichi-Grand Lake. First of all, I'd like to underline the excellent work of the Minister of Trade during the negotiations. This agreement will help middle-class families and will create new opportunities for many sectors of the Canadian economy, including agriculture. We are proud of the work that we've done, and we're proud to have signed an agreement that will increase exports by more than $1.5 billion. We are aware of the needs of dairy farmers, and that's why we are currently working to help them transition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This Halloween is all tricks and no treats for unpaid public servants. The government has been in office for a year, and it is missing its own deadline to fix pay problems. The minister made the decision to proceed with Phoenix, even though the system was known to be unready. And now my office and many others are being inundated with people desperate to get the money that they are owed. Will the minister responsible agree to suspend her own pay until all public servants get theirs?
Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, there is no one more concerned about the fact that we have employees who aren't getting paid for work performed than this minister. That is why we have pulled out all the stops. That is why the Department of Public Services and Procurement have put in extra measures. We've hired 250 people. We've put in place 4 satellite offices. We are responding to the issues. It is totally unacceptable for people to go without pay for work performed, and we will continue to work hard to resolve these issues.
Member for Disney, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, more sad news coming from my riding. There has been a 6th suicide in the span of 3 weeks in northern Saskatchewan. On behalf of the NDP, I'd like to extend our condolences to the families and communities going through this hard time. This government needs to end the Band-Aid strategy and commit to a culturally appropriate long-term approach to mental wellness. Will this Prime Minister stand up and address the immediate needs for Indigenous mental health in the North? How much louder do our kids need to be?
Yes. Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I want to echo the sentiments of my honourable colleague opposite. It's absolutely devastating to hear of these young people in northern Saskatchewan and indeed in other communities in Canada who have taken their own lives in recent weeks. And I believe that all members of this House would like to express our condolences to the families. The member is absolutely correct that we need to be thinking not only of how we can support these families and these communities in the short term, as we are working very hard to do, but we must think of the long-term solutions. And in fact, I look forward to working with all members of this House to support Indigenous health and wellness, to make sure that we find...
The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today is Halloween and many children will be on the streets trick-or-treating. However, we must remember that roads can be dangerous and that our children must be protected. Can the Minister please update this House as to what he is doing to improve the safety of roads in Canada?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Scarborough Centre for a question, but also for caution and safety on Halloween. All of us in this government care deeply about road safety, and although I'm not a big one for tricks, I do like a treat once in a while, and that's why I'm glad to announce that as of the 1st of May 2018, all new cars that are sold in Canada will have to be equipped with a rear camera system. We think this is a good idea because even though rear view mirrors do help us, they don't give us the full picture, and we're particularly concerned about the safety of our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the Minister had promised that by October 31st, all of the issues with the Phoenix pay system would be solved. But today, we're not talking about hundreds or thousands, but rather thousands of federal employees are still not receiving their pay. For some of them, it's been months. Furthermore, we learned today that the operating costs of Phoenix are ballooning. But, well, ballooning costs don't seem to bother the Liberals. Just look at their deficit. Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals finally solve this problem and ensure that federal employees get their pay as they deserve without having to beg for it?
Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, again, let me repeat how unacceptable it is for public service employees to go without pay for work performed. We are now looking at the most complex issues that remain. 75% of the backlog cases have been addressed. We are putting a dedicated unit on to deal with the complex issues that remain. We are determined to get those resolved as quickly as possible. Again, we are not at all happy that people are having to face hardships as a result of these pay issues. So we are dedicated to finding a resolution to these outstanding pay issues.
Député de Rivière-du-Nord.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, there was a beautiful scene yesterday in Brussels. Everyone was shaking hands and smiling for the camera because the trade agreement with the European Union had finally been signed. But I'm not sure. Order. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'll start over. It was a beautiful scene yesterday in Brussels. The trade agreement with the European Union was finally signed.
Come on. Come on.
Alors, j'en appelle à l'ordre, Monsieur le Président.
Well, I think that I should get my 35 seconds for my question. Will that be possible? So, Mr. Speaker, yesterday in Brussels, there was a beautiful scene. Everyone was shaking hands and smiling for the camera because the trade agreement with Europe had finally been signed. But I am not convinced that our cheese farmers were smiling quite so broadly. 17,000 tons of European cheese are now going to pour into our market, which endangers Quebec cheese. Will the finance minister use the economic update tomorrow to talk about compensation for our dairy and cheese farmers, or will the Liberals once again break another promise, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. We signed CETA with the European Union, and we always affirmed that the government should help dairy farmers and producers to go through this transition. They contribute to, we're helping develop programs that will promote growth and help producers. As said before, we are committed to providing assistance to the dairy sector to adapt to these new conditions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, in his economic update, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that the government couldn't afford any more spending. I'm not concerned about the spending so much as the income. The government is refusing to go after billions of dollars that the big banks are hiding in Barbados. The consequence is that middle-class families are going to have to foot the bill for declining public services. Why is the government refusing to go after the money which is in these banks in Barbados? Is the government loyal to ordinary people or to Bay Street? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, middle-class Canadians who are paying their fair share of taxes are right to be indignant when they see this. When they see these companies using sophisticated schemes to avoid paying what they need to pay. We have a historic budget of $444 million, which we've allotted to fight against what's happening internationally. Our officials are working on that, and we will deliver the goods, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, the government is refusing to make the banks pay their fair share, but they don't mind reaching into the pockets of students. So they've boasted that they've given $80 million in financial aid to Quebec students, but on the other hand, they cut $200 million in tax credits. So that's $120 million less for our Quebec students. And that is the Prime Minister's responsibility because he's the Minister for Youth. So will the Minister of Youth use the economic update tomorrow to give this $120 million back to our students?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Honourable Minister. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to see the Conservative bench is really pleased about the $4 billion that we invested in students in this country. Mr. Speaker, $330 million for the Youth Employment Strategy, $1.5 billion for student grants, great investments, $125 million for LMDAs. We believe in investing in students in this country. That's what's going to pay long-term dividends, create long-term, well-paying jobs. That's what this government's all about. We promised it, and we're doing it.
It's the end of question period for today. Tabling of documents.
I encourage members to take their conversations, which I know are important. It's a chance to speak to ministers and other MPs about important things, but they can do that in the lobbies. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 32.2, I have the honour to table in both official languages the Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. This was signed in Brussels, Belgium, October 30th, 2016.
Pursuant to Standing Order 32.2, I have the very great honour to table in both official languages the treaty entitled Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement between Canada, of the one part, and the European Union and its member states of the other part.